welcome to Great Expectations. I'm Tom Ziggy Kennedy, joined by Dan Life Lozier, brother Matt Carvalho, and Chris Wonderland Palumbo. Today we are diving into the penultimate episode of our Rock Supergroup Challenge, where we present 4 iconic albums from a single decade in order to build an epic supergroup. The rules of the challenge are simple. We must own it on vinyl, we can't have featured it before, it has to be iconic, and someone in the band should be considered best in class. Now, before we jump into the 2010s, a reminder of the incredible, sadly imaginary supergroups we have built to date. Coming in the 1960s, we have The Haze, featuring Mick Jagger, Keith Richards, Rick Danko, Ringo Starr, that's right, and Garth Hudson. In the 70s, we created Witchy Ways, featuring Freddie Mercury, Jimmy Page, Tony Iommi, John Paul Jones, John Bonham, and Stevie Nicks. This is my personal favourite.
It's a good one.
It is so good.
Coming into the 80s with Prince's Cocaine Pool Party, also known as PCP Squared, featuring David Lee Roth, Eddie Van Halen, Malcolm Young, Neil Peart, and Prince, of course. In the 90s, we're still going in the 90s, Lorne Green's Dog and the Captain's Log. If you don't understand the name, read Flea's memoir, featuring Chris Cornell, John Frusciante, Kurt Cobain, Flea, Dave Grohl, and Alanis Morissette.
What a crazy...
What a monster band.
That's
my favorite right there.
Yeah, that might be close to my favorite too. And then last episode, the 2000s, the Universal Superband, formed by Zune for a marketing campaign.
Sponsored by Zune.
Sponsored by Zune. Hello from Seattle. Featuring Julian Casablancas, Matt Bellamy, Jack White, Chris Wolstenholme, and Travis Barker. Wow.
Big bands.
Big bands to follow up.
Big bands.
Yeah.
So if last month's episode featuring the 2000s was a time to ditch our record collections for burnt CDs and Zunes and iPods, I think it's safe to say in the 2010s we've jumped back into the dumpsters to retrieve our collections, because the 2010s is all about the vinyl revival. Vinyl
Big
is
time.
back. Mm-hmm. And the albums we've chosen from this era, our final supergroup forming episode, features Haim, Women in Music Part 3, the Black Keys Brothers, John Mayer, Paradise Valley, and David Bowie, Black Star. 2 of these 4 feature in 1001 albums. I will let our listeners guess which 2.
Yes. Definitely John Mayer.
I want to, this isn't entirely chronological, but I want to kick things off with the start of the 2010s and Matt's pick, which is the Black Keys Brothers.
All right, big album, big album. When this album dropped, I feel like the rest of the rock world just kind of like sat back and listened, because this was a monster album. It had monster singles, and really, you look at the production of this album, it was just 3 guys. 3 guys that got in the studio and recorded this album. Basically, they just loaded all their gear into one room, and it was in the middle of nowhere in Alabama, and just started recording. And they really focused on building like the rhythm section, drums and bass. That's how they started every single session, and kept that format basically throughout, and then overdubbed all the guitars. Just plain and simple. And then if you look at the production credits and who was involved, like I said, 3 guys, and then they set it to Thad Blake for mixing, who is a like huge like mixing guy.
Mixing engineer. Get it together, Matt.
He's also did another big album that he did was Arctic Monkeys AM. So just a little bit of background there.
Some of his other work includes his contributions to Al Green, Bonnie Raitt, Crowded House, Sheryl Crow, Fiona Apple, Peter Gabriel, and Tom Waits, just to name a few. He also won 2 Grammys for his work on Brothers.
He's a monster in the studio. He's amazing. Gets some wicked sounds. But yeah, like, again, you look at the sounds on this album, it really felt more, I felt like it kind of brought blues rock back to rock and roll. And that, like, where we had a lot of indie rock in the mid to early 2000s, and then kind of leading into 2009, this kind of brought the basic roots back to rock and roll.
Yeah, it's like you said when you started this, Matt. Like when this album came out, like the rock world stopped and just listened, because a lot of the rock that was coming out in the last 10 years prior to this
Didn't sound like this.
had a very distinct sound, and then this came back to like a very roots era.
Yeah.
Blues rock, jam band, and we've talked about this before too, right? Like how much we love small recording, just get the instruments on tape, play them really loud, play them really well, and you don't need too much to make magic. And that's to me, that's what this album is.
Yeah, 100%.
This really took me back to a lot of other albums we featured in this Supergroup challenge, right? If you think about like simple blues, the simple not meaning not hard, but simple as in at concept level, blues rock.
Yeah.
We had the Stones, we had Zeppelin, we had the White Stripes. Like there's this kind of it may have been new in 2010 what they were doing, but they were going tracing it right back to its roots. And it might seem simple enough, but it's just they nailed it. Like it's perfection in terms of blues rock and roll.
Yeah, big time.
Yeah, it was also, like we were saying, indie rock was the scene. Like Mumford & Sons was the forefront of music at the time, and it was nice to go back to that. Mm-hmm. Now, I didn't listen to this album. I listened to the one after, right? Their biggest album comes out, El Camino. Yeah,
yeah, they reloaded pretty quick and came back with El Camino in 2011.
Right, which is crazy. But when I listened to this again, because it's probably been 10 years, I knew most of the songs. Yeah. And I don't know, it definitely featured on Guitar Hero, right? Some of these songs?
I don't know. I know, sure. I think one was on Rocksmith.
Oh, maybe
and then
Rocksmith.
There was a lot of songs that were featured in television.
Oh, probably that's why.
And video games as well.
I knew, I don't know where I've heard them, but I definitely have never listened to this album front to back until this week. But I knew, I was like, oh, I recognize this. I recognize this. I recognize this. And it was blew me away. Well, yeah. And then the classic, Howlin' For You, which is the main reason I didn't dive into this album, was that song on the radio.
So
again,
much.
Canadian radio killed it.
Yeah.
Killed it. And I was like, I don't care. First time I heard it was yeah, cool. Next time I was like, okay, I'm done. Right. And then, which is nice. Tom said, this is the year we switched for vinyl, but this is also the 2010s and everything is the push into streaming, where music became way more accessible. So instead of having to torrent an album, I can now go back and listen to this whole, or going out to buy it, which in 2010 I was pretty broke. Wasn't spending my money on CDs, on new albums, or at that time iTunes was selling singles for 99 cents, right?
Yep.
And I'd make Greg Hood seemed to have disposable income for music, and we'd be I'd send him a list, be you have to listen to this song. But then we'd pick and choose 2 or 3 songs because you couldn't buy the full album for $15.
Yeah.
Right. So there we go.
Yeah. What I love about this album too is everything just sounds so warm and full.
Yes.
It's not a hi-fi album by any means, but it's also not a lo-fi. It's kind of in a sweet spot right in the middle, where if you listen to other rock leading up to the 2010s, I do find you're more on that hi-fi end of things, because there's a lot of indie or prog rock of the world that was kind of taking over at the time as well.
Yeah, you can tell that the production value is pretty high. They were using good mics, and they were using good mixers. They were using good kit.
Oh yeah, they were using some good gear.
So just crank your amps, get the mics nice and tight to the drum kit, and really let the instruments shine, right? And they're exceptional musicians, both of them.
Oh yeah, big time.
Dan Arbach and Patrick on drums, they're definitely in a top tier class, right? So having the two of them being the majority of the musicians on the album, you can't go wrong with that formula.
Yeah, 100%.
What really interested me reading about this album, it shares a similar thread to another album we featured on here, which is Fleetwood Mac Rumours, in that the album came from serious tension within the band. They were on the verge of breaking up the year before this came out. There was serious tension between the two of them. They hadn't spoken to each other in months. Dan released a solo project, which he didn't tell Patrick about until it the first Patrick knew about it was when it came out, which obviously would be pretty upsetting as a
that would
duo.
hurt.
Yeah,
as a duo,
100%.
right? He wasn't sure whether they were going to continue. Like, he didn't know what it meant. He felt kind of humiliated that he'd found out about it once it was released. And if there were other personal circumstances, divorce, etc., that these guys were going through that created this tension. And then they kind of came together, literally sort of hugged and broke bread and made up, and went back into the studio and made this, which is clearly their most impactful work of their career. It's like they won 3 Grammys with this.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Yeah.
Interesting point on the Grammys is that they beat out the Suburbs for
Wow.
Best Alternative Album of the Year, and then Arcade Fire ended up winning Album of the Year.
Yeah. That was an
Wow,
interesting
which is-
Grammys that year.
Yeah, very controversial win.
Yeah.
When they didn't win their category, but then they won overall. Yeah,
Exactly.
that's really interesting. And that in itself, 2 totally contrasting styles, right? You've got 2 guys, a team of 3 in the production, really stripped back blues rock and roll, and then Arcade Fire, there's 7 members in the band.
Yeah, but then plus all these session musicians
Yeah.
that they got on, right? Like, but it's like Chris said, like Arcade Fire was dominating this indie rock
Yeah.
space, right? Like
Yeah.
they're at the forefront of the indie scene in North America, and boom, the Black Keys came back with stripped down blues rock, right?
Yeah.
And I love
Can't
that
beat
line.
it.
I love the line. Like the rock world just had to stop and listen, and you're absolutely right.
You can't beat it.
No.
It doesn't matter.
It's true.
It doesn't matter what direction, how many branches spread out from the rock tree. It always goes back to its roots.
But there's enough of a fresh sound there that
Yes.
for me, like a big part of what I consider a top tier album is, does it deliver anything new? Does it feel fresh? And when someone pulls out something like this, you're like, oh, well, is there anything new? But it just feels fresh. It did a really good job.
Yeah.
100%. And
their
it still
own.
feels fresh. It
Yeah.
still feels fresh.
I got that. It felt.
Yeah, I listened
It
to
felt
that
like new. Yeah.
Yeah, 13 years later, and I was like, I could still listen to this
Yeah.
front to back, no problem.
Yeah.
I was actually really glad that you picked it, Matt, because I don't know if I've listened to it in its entirety for 10 or 30, like probably since it came out. Like,
Oh, fair enough.
they're not like I enjoy the Black Keys. They're not a band I go back to often. So to listen to it in its entirety again and just be reminded how damn good it is was a great pick.
Yeah. Because again, I was saying, I think in my listening world, other bands kind of took up Arcade Fire. I listened to a lot more. The Arctic Monkeys I listened to a lot more, and this one just kind of got stacked down on my list. But this is one that it's like, oh, I can go back and have those memories and be like, or bring me back to that era, and it's almost like I'm listening to something new and fresh because it's been so long, or I've actually never listened to the album in the entirety of it. So I was happy that this album was thrown into the mix. At first I wasn't. I was really pushing for some Arctic Monkeys to make it. But no, as soon as I heard this front to back, I was like, this is, I know why. This is
No,
easily, I know why.
It feels like a perfect pick, right? Like
Yeah.
Yeah, it does. It works
there's-
really well.
I think both of them are candidates for position,
Yes, I agree.
and the album hits a top tier A status.
I'd say
Yep,
it's
by far.
probably one of the picks of the 2010s, like the capitals.
yeah.
Yes.
When we were like trying to curate a bit and like put albums out on the table, I was like, this one has to be in the discussion.
So no brainer, yeah.
Well, so again, I was on the fence until I listened to it again. Or until I listened to it in its entirety. I knew the singles off of it, but it really took me listening to the whole album to really understand it, right? I would never have picked this. But now that I've listened to it, I'd be like, okay, like, yes, this makes sense to me, right? Because if you would have showed me Arctic Monkeys and you would have showed me this, I would have taken the Arctic Monkeys because that's what I was more familiar with, right?
Fair enough.
But I think this beats it easily. Like,
I think so.
I think so too. Which
Yeah, I think
is
so too.
which is
Which is why we picked it.
right. Yes.
I might actually like the Arctic Monkeys album better, but for this episode, like
Yes.
this 100% would be a pick over the Arctic Monkeys.
Arctic Monkeys. Yeah.
Should we dive into the ratings?
Yes.
Yes, I've got them geared up here.
Let's hear it.
Pretty like high mid. Interestingly, I think maybe El Camino kind of outshadowed this album a bit.
It may have,
but
especially
because
released so quickly.
It's very surprising. Like 7.6, 82 out of 100, 4.5 out of 5, B+, 3 out of 5, 4 out of 5, 8 out of 10, 7.7 out of 10, 4 out of 5.
Interesting.
It definitely isn't rating as high as some of the things we've featured in this series.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
I'm sure when this came out, right? Like I said, like, is it delivering anything new? Maybe not, right? And so when this came out, it could have had been like, you know, in the critic's mind, like where is this at in music? But I think as the album has aged, it's definitely gained some points.
Yeah, I agree.
Matt, what before we jump into some vinyl nerdery, what's your pick of the tracks?
So for me, it would be a toss-up between Everlasting Light and Sinister Kid, but I think
love that song.
all day, every day, I'm going Everlasting Light.
I really love the way that kicks the album.
Oh, it's the best way to start it.
It's really bright. I
Yeah.
mean, it's in the name, right? But it's a really bright track.
Yeah, I love it.
I
love the drum sound on it.
Right? I wish.
Maybe one of you. Sorry, Chris. Sorry. You go.
Well, I was going to say, I wish I had access to the streaming service when this came out, because if I would have heard that song before I heard Howlin' at You or Howlin' for You, I think it would have dragged me to listen to the rest of the album. Right? Where I didn't. I only heard the Howlin' for You, and then over and over again, where if I had access to Spotify, which is later in the 2010s, I think it would have opened my eyes to this album in a different way. So I'm glad you picked that, Matt.
I don't know if any of you guys have looked into this. I haven't. But what do you think the sound is in the drum pattern? It's like a.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Do you know what I'm talking
I've never looked
about?
into it. I know exactly what you're talking about.
I was listening to it, going, "What the hell is?" I don't think that's a drum kit, but it's like a signature sound in the drum beat in Everlasting Light.
You're gonna have to put that in right now, Matt.
I couldn't find out any hard facts about the sound. Sorry, guys.
If you're a listener who works in the industry and knows what it is, or is just a super Black Keys nerd, please send us an email explaining it in great detail.
Yes.
Absolutely.
And we'll read it out word for word on the next one.
Maybe.
So,
Matt, what pressing do you have of this? Because I found a really interesting pressing online.
So I've got the anniversary edition. I was an idiot in 2010s. I actually bought this for a friend as a gift and didn't buy myself a copy.
that's not like you at all.
It is not like me.
Who did you buy it for?
So
Mark,
did you get the
Mark,
2
okay.
LP
Does he still have it?
edition?
Yes. And yes.
Yes and yes.
Good.
Okay.
Okay, good. Yeah.
So
Actually,
This
I think
little-
the anniversary is 3 LP.
okay, this is the 10-year anniversary, released in 20. Yeah. So this is for the listeners. This is a new little addition. Probably we've always talked about this, but making it a little more official. Just inserting some vinyl nerdery at the end of every selection. And I found a really interesting version of the 10-year anniversary reissue. In addition to the 2 or 3 LP version, they actually released a 7-inch version. So it's 9 7-inch records. So I presume that every side is one track.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Limited to 7,500 copies. And the pre-ordered version came signed. I'm not sure how many.
That's awesome.
How many of them were pre-ordered, but it sounds like a really cool. If you're a big Black Keys fan, that would be a cool piece to have, just for the sake of it. But the annoying thing, as often has happened in recent years with anniversary reissues and special releases and record store day releases, there's 67 copies available on the Discogs marketplace. 65 of them are listed as mint. So they are flippers.
Yeah, 100%.
Like people have just bought it to flip it, which annoys the shit out of me. But if you're really sweet on this album, that would be a very cool version of it to have on vinyl.
For sure.
Yeah. I don't I'm not a fan of the 7-inch where you have to.
Oh, what a pain. Can you imagine changing 9 7-inches each song?
May as well just
Yeah.
stand at the
That's
turntable.
insane.
That's something
Be great
you
for a
definitely.
DJ.
That's something you have out. Yeah, you play it once and
It's a
you put it
display
away.
piece.
Yeah, but even that one, the chats one you got me, Tom. I've listened to it once because it's so annoying.
It's signed. Put it in a shadow box and hang
Yeah,
it on the wall.
100%.
Yeah.
You put that up in a frame.
Yeah, with our other sign chats
With
stuff.
the Sign Chats t-shirt.
Oh, yeah.
Coming
totally,
to a digging, spinning, gigging episode near you soon.
Yes.
All right, let's jump into our next pick, and I cannot wait to hear the explanation for this. Let's talk about John Mayer's Paradise Valley.
Oh boy.
Let's talk about it, Chris.
All right. Well, I struggle. Okay, so for the listeners out there, I was the one with a little bit of Carvalho, but mostly me pushing that the 2010s had to be included in this supergroup. I was like, no,
You did, yeah.
This is important context.
Yeah, if you're going to if we're going to do this, you have to include everything up to the current time.
So for added context,
Yeah.
Tom and I were pushing for
The
the
50s.
2000s to be from the year 2000 till the year 2023.
yes.
So any album in that time span.
And that,
But we also pushed for the 50s to be
we
the
also
first
pushed for the
decade.
50s as well, yeah.
yeah, yes, and no, and I think I wanted the 50s because I wanted Chuck Berry.
You did.
Chuck
yeah.
Berry, yeah.
But I think we said it was just too much.
It was going to be too hard.
Yeah.
We didn't think that we wouldn't be able to do 4 albums that would fit the criteria.
Criteria, right. Owning the album, yes. And
Yeah,
then again,
yeah, exactly.
So, yes, so I push this because a lot of my collection is from the, say,
Yeah.
2006 to now.
Yep.
But when I was pushing for this, we hadn't set the rules as much, especially with that iconic. They were in discussion, but
I mean,
yes.
I kept reminding you.
Yes, you
to be
did.
a 10 out of 10 album.
yes, but
But I get
also
your point. You
but
really wanted John Mayer to be in this.
no. So, but we also put the idea of it needs to be a good like an iconic album, and then an iconic musician, and I think the Black
At
Keys
least one of those is true in
True.
this album.
Yes, and that's what I had to settle for. But it was painstaking, and I'm not saying I made the right choice. I'm not saying, but for me in my collection, when I literally took my collection, laid it out, and was like, this is the only album that meets most of the criteria. So that's how I picked it. And believe it or not, it's not even my record. I didn't buy it.
Whose is it?
It's Lee's. Lee bought this.
To be fair, Chris,
Yeah,
I had to
Lee.
buy 3 records for this challenge. But
Yeah.
Yeah,
actually, 4.
And I was gonna buy, and I thought I owned AM. I'm telling, there's a box of my records that somewhere along between moving 3 houses, I'm missing like a very small collection. I'm missing a Born Ruffians album. I swear I bought AM. I'm missing a Foo Fighters album that's shoved somewhere. And then when we move out of when my parents move or Lee's parents move, we're
find
gonna
them.
find it like 10 years or 20 years in the future.
Sealed
Yeah,
active
sealed.
monkeys, yeah.
Born Ruffians might be sealed, but I don't know.
But-
anyway, so I picked this solely because I was like, all right, in my opinion, there's hardly any 10 out of 10 albums in the 2010s to 2023. I struggled with it in my personal opinion.
What do you like about this album? Because I don't think anyone's arguing Mayer shouldn't be considered for a supergroup.
Yes, it's all the guitar and the way it's just so simple. It just stands out to me. It also has a very sweet, wonderful spot in my life where me and Lee were collecting records on the regular. We were always going out and looking for them. And this lived on our turntable for a long time when we lived in Whitby and when we moved back in with our parents for a bit. And it was like that one little spot we can get away from from her parents or my parents, we put on a record and just like hang out in this time in like a spare bedroom off to the side.
Chris,
So,
it's really not fair that you're pulling at our heartstrings
yes, that's
to convince us to get
Also,
this album on.
Still blows my mind
'Cause it's
that, you,
working.
that you
Yes.
said you're not a country music fan. How many times? And like
Yeah, but I'm wrong.
80% of the albums you present are country.
And the dog on the back.
You're not a
man.
punk rocker. You're actually an outlaw cowboy.
Yeah, exactly.
100%. Like this should have been the clear. Look at the way he's dressed.
It's a
Wearing,
sweet
like-
cover. I think
Yeah.
it's so he has property in. Is it in Montana?
Montana.
That looks like Montana. It looks like
And do you know what? I actually, when I first started listening to this, Chris, I was like, what? Like, why? Like, I know the John Mayer part of why you picked
Yes.
it, but then listening to the album, I was like, why?
Right.
But then I actually, as I listened to it, the context of Mayer's last 10 years, right? He, with Born and Raised and Paradise Valley, he was listening to a lot of the Grateful Dead.
Yeah. Oh, was he? I didn't know that.
All of a sudden discovered he was a Deadhead. He had never dove into them. He heard the song Althea, which is a famous Grateful Dead song and really famous live from their set list. He dove into their discography and he became a Deadhead. He then released Born and Raised and Paradise Valley, which are heavily influenced by the Dead. You can hear it in everything. And then 2 years after this was released, he joined Bob Weir in Dead and Company and has been touring with them since. Well, they've wrapped up now. But so this is actually, in terms of Mayer's discography, this little pocket has an important place in his heart.
So, which is funny because this is I'm not a John. This is the only album of John Mayer's I really kind of enjoy. I love his other hits, but this is the first one I listened to front to back and was like, oh, I think I like John Mayer. This turned me around on it.
There's a big but that was
Yes.
coming after I said that.
Yeah, keep going.
But he himself has been quoted as saying Paradise Valley, if he had to pick, is his least favorite album from his discography.
That's funny.
Oh,
'cause
wow.
I could see that too.
Which when I read that, I just laughed so hard. I was like, this is the most Chris pick ever.
Right? Again, it is a very me pick because I'm connecting it again, and I think John Mayer, yes, and I think John Mayer deserved to be on that list. But yeah, the first, I think Lozier, you posted in the group, was like, I still can't figure out why this album's on here. And I gave you a thumbs up because I listened to it again and was like, oh God, I forgot how like the music, the lyrics, some of it is very cheesy. It's very bubbly at some points. And I was just like, oh God. But then today I had it on again and I was outside and it was sunny and nice. And I was like, oh, and then I had it on the other day while me and Lee were making dinner, and Lee was like, oh, you put John Mayer on, right? And we were making dinner together, and our kids were kind of interacting, and I was like, it was that moment again, and I thought, yeah, this album I like. Again, it's not a 10 out of 10 album. He's a 10 out of 10 musician. You listen to the guitar, it's spectacular, especially the way on Wildfire, the way this album starts. I'm a sucker for good starting albums, and this album starts with a really nice guitar intro, and it gets me every time.
Yeah, I don't hate the album. I actually think it's a decent album.
Yes.
The thing that always throws me off with a lot of John Mayer stuff is like as soon as he starts singing, it kind of kills it. It kind of kills it for me. So
I get what you mean. Yeah.
I didn't love. I just it's something about its style, and I kind of said, and the point that I was making in Matt's presentation, like, does the album deliver anything new? This is a for sure like does not really deliver anything new.
Yep.
And it doesn't really stand the test of time to me. It just sits as like a glimpse of John Mayer as to what he's able to put out at that time. And when I look at John Mayer, I think of like his team, right? It's never just feels like it's John Mayer putting something out himself. it feels like there's a lot of production behind it to get him to a certain level. And I think he's an amazing guitar player for sure. But I also think that the point that you and Matt were making of trying to get John Mayer in as one of the best guitarists, like his guitar style is very much not unique.
Fair enough. Yeah.
And if you were to say put Stevie Ray Vaughan and John Mayer head to head, who would you pick as better guitarist?
Definitely John Mayer.
9 out of 10 people would pick Stevie Ray Vaughan.
No, I get
what you mean. Yeah.
But as,
in the
as a guitarist in the 2010s, I think he's a fine, as in I don't have any problems with him being a guitarist in our 2010s supergroup.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I don't have that much of a problem, but it's just that, you know, we have to remember like the popular artists out there are the ones who we're putting up, right? And a lot of these previous bands from especially the 60s and 70s, they're going to be regarded as the greatest guitarists of all time for a very long time.
Yes.
But I don't think John Mayer is going to have that same standing power. I think, because like I said, it's very much a glimpse in time. But to say that there aren't other great guitar players out there like John Mayer today, there are.
Well, we talked about St. Vincent, right? We did throw up, like, she would be definitely in the conversation.
Technically, she might not actually be as good as John, because John, technically speaking, is insane.
Phenomenal.
He's insane, but I don't think his style is unique. You know, I don't think he's adding anything to the table. That's the problem that I have with John.
But in the concepts of the 2010s, I think
even that. Like I don't want to put up. Like, think of all the great guitarists that we've put up in this conversation, right? They all brought a distinct, unique style that was 1,000% theirs when they came out. Even in the 2000s, right? But John Mayer, in my opinion, is not anything new to the table. He's just technically good.
Yes. Matt is so disgusted with what you're saying. He is choking.
Just need a little bit of water.
Sorry, I was going to say, from a technical standpoint, you don't think he really stands out that much?
No, that's what I'm saying is I think he's an amazing guitar player because technically speaking, I think he's top tier.
Yes.
But I don't think he delivers any new style, any new sound, anything rich to the conversation of a great guitar player. I think all he's really bringing is that technical ability.
Oh, okay.
Fair enough.
I hear you. Yes.
I think this is a broader discussion, and I want to save it for the start of us talking about the supergroup. And we've spoken about this on the chat about the quality of the 10s versus the rest of the supergroups.
Yeah.
Yes.
I want to just quickly hear from Matt on this album, and then I think we should jump into the ratings, because this is probably the most divisive pick.
Yes.
Of this decade.
Yeah.
So for me, correct me if I'm wrong, he did this album. He hadn't done anything new in a while, correct? And he was kind of living in isolation a little bit.
He was about before. I don't know if it was before this one or before Born and Raised, but he hadn't released anything. He hadn't toured for about 4 years.
Yes,
3
and
years.
he had throat surgery,
yes,
which required him to take time off from singing. His label or his management, whoever, wanted him to hit the road again. And his view was, which is admirable, his view was, I'm not late enough in my career to hit the road and just play the hits like a
100%
legacy live act. I want new music to tour with.
Yeah.
Which is really admirable.
Yeah, because what was interesting with John Mayer is when he hit, he became popular really fast.
Oh, yeah.
And he was still pretty young. Like, he even says it in his live DVD, live show / documentary style, where, you know, when he had success, it was quite early in his career. And he didn't really go through the same struggle as a lot of singer-songwriters do. But yeah, anyways, getting back to the album. So for me, the album still works. It's not one of my favorites by John Mayer. But I do think it still works. It's, again, he plays well. He's got good riffs. For me, my standout on this album would be the song that he's got with Katy Perry, and at the time they were engaged.
Oh, I didn't know.
But-
Which is wild.
The reason
Wild.
I think this album might, kind of rub people the wrong way or not, it's not a go-to for many fans, is it's borderline country. So unless you're really into that genre,
Like
I don't
Chris.
think
Like me. Like
a
I'm
lot of
into
people are going to
country,
dive into it, right?
Yeah. I think
Because
which is why it spoke to me.
hey, that's fair. And like I said,
Being
for
the
me,
country fan you are.
Yeah.
for me, it does work. I do enjoy this album, but for me, so with his first 3 albums, especially Continuum, I can throw them on any time. I don't have to be in a mood. I'm like, hey, I want to listen to John Mayer. Boom, here we go. This one, I gotta be in the mood for it.
I agree.
Yeah, and for me, that's why it still does work. But I gotta be in that mindset, that kind of feel for that album.
Which today was the perfect. I don't know if
Yes,
anyone
100%.
Today was a perfect day for it. The sun
Yeah.
was out a little bit. It was kind of warm.
yeah,
You
it
need to be
worked.
in and out. Worked really well today. Which
Yeah, so
I
helped me.
listened to it again this morning, and it hit.
Yeah, I threw
will
it on
say
yesterday.
hit.
Oh,
Because the other day I put it on and I was like, oh God, I made I was having huge regrets.
No,
Figuring
honestly,
it
we
out.
almost
Loving
changed it.
I don't
Yeah, I almost changed
earlier
it
this
yeah.
week. Yeah.
Yep.
I'm glad
And
you
then I
didn't
stuck to my
change
guns.
it. I'm
Me
glad
too,
you didn't
because-
change it because I still enjoy the album. It's just
Yeah.
it's out of his discography. It's not my go-to.
I agree.
And-
But
again,
it's, yeah,
I
like
picked
it still hits.
And again, I picked it for him because I thought he needed to be featured here.
Yeah.
And this is the one I connect to the most. And it's the only John Mayer I actually have in my collection, which I'd like to change. So
Gotta
before we dive into ratings, which no one's going to be blown away, they're pretty middle of the board. The song I forgot I really liked was Wildfire.
Great song.
Which is
great song.
And it has Frank Ocean, which is always a hit at my house. On the second side of the album, right? And then, I'm gonna go with Wildfire to start off the album with, right at the beginning, and then there's the version with Frank Ocean to start off the second side, if I'm not mistaken. No, that's not true at all. Wildfire's the third song on the B-side. Sorry, but it's the first song on the actual album, and I thought that was kind of cool how they played off that. So I thought that was pretty neat. So Lozier, you want to
Let's
read
jump
the
into the ratings.
Or do you want me to?
Okay, we've got 73 out of 100,
Yeah.
3.5 out of 5, 2.5 out of 5, 4 out of 5, 3.5 out of 5, 3 out of 5, 3 out of 4, 3 out of 4, 3 out of 4, 3.5 out of 5, 3 out of 4. So about 70,
Yeah.
75%.
And again, it doesn't, none of that shocked me.
Do you know what? I don't think any of those are wrong.
Yes.
No,
me
I
neither.
agree. I
Yeah,
agree.
me neither.
Totally.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
But again, the 2010s, way harder than I thought it was going to be.
So
Yeah.
vinyl nerdery on this one is not as interesting as you'd hope.
No?
It seems like there's only 3 pressings of this on vinyl.
Yeah.
All came out in 2010.
Yeah.
Interestingly, they all came with a CD. I don't know if you still have yours, Chris, but they all
bought mine
came
used.
with the CD.
So that was really common back then. So in order to get you to buy
Especially
the
in the early
vinyl,
2010s.
it was you got the CD,
Yeah.
a download code, and a vinyl for $19,
Yeah.
which is why I bought the album. Because well, again, streaming was going. I think we bought this used.
So is that
if
like
I'm not
one
mistaken.
for your home and one for your car? Is that the...
Yeah,
Yeah, I
right?
think
'Cause
that's
we
the
used to have it
idea.
in the. Do you know what? 100% actually, it probably did because Lee's car had a CD deck where you could put like 12 CDs in the car.
nice.
But when she got rear-ended, all her CDs got stuck in there, and I guarantee you this one was
Probably in there.
I would have been
Yeah.
so fucking pissed.
Yeah.
So-
she had some good ones. Yeah.
Before we jump into the next one, I just want to put on the record that if Chris ever has a music memoir, the title's going to be Undercover Cowboy.
No, it's
that's a good one.
I do love country.
Well, it's do not.
God
and
damn
then
it,
the
I do love country.
It's I do not.
It's I do not love country, and the last line of the book is, God damn it, I do love country.
I do not love country with the not crossed out.
So, yeah.
Yeah, there you go. There you go.
There you go. Look, and Tom, just for you. Look, it's in a sleeve.
It's in a sleeve. I'm,
Because
so,
it's Lee's
I'm
album.
so proud of you.
You just gotta get some
Yeah,
That's
That's
because it's
how it
Lee's.
Yeah.
It's because it's Lee's. It's not because it's Chris.
Not Chris's.
I've been slowly getting better.
Nice.
I don't believe you. All right, let's...
If you need sleeves, Chris, I can hook you up.
Oh, I do. I just have no money. I keep spending it on records.
Tom also shipped apparently 500 outers.
It's the way to do it.
From Australia. So.
It's the way to do it.
I keep entering vinyl. There's a
Shout
vinyl
out to the Groove Man.
There you go. Vinyl Solutions, which is a Canadian company, keeps doing like a thing where it's like enter to win 500 sleeves, and every time I'm just like, I'm not paying. I'm gonna win this one of these days. I'm gonna win this.
Nice.
Dude, you gotta bite the bullet eventually.
I'll show you. I'll show them all. I'll win this. Yeah.
When one of us gets an ultrasonic cleaner, we will, as a gift to you, we will clean and sleeve your collection.
No, I would love to be
That's
a part
all
of
you,
that.
Tom.
That's all you. Yeah.
I was roping you into that, Dan. That's why I said we.
I'll let you, Chris, I'll let you borrow the machine. I'm not doing it for you.
Guys, it's going to snow anytime now. All my records are going to be
Your
clean
new
and no
cleaning method.
That's right, yeah.
Your patented technique.
Yeah. Tom,
All right.
you got to try it.
Let's,
now that you're here.
Yeah, that's true. I do have to. I've got to actually. I probably do need to clean my copy of Let It Be Naked. So
Oh, yeah. Throw
I'll
it.
just wait for a good snowfall. Dan's triggered.
Pardon?
No way. No way. What is this garbage?
All right, let's jump into our next pick, which again there was some back and forth and some questioning from members about this, but let's talk about Haim, Women in Music, Part 3.
Okay, so that's my pick for this. I know there definitely was a bit of back and forth, and I think at some point when we were really trying to nail down the episode, Haim kind of became a mainstay that everyone could kind of agree on. And Days Gone By was the pick that we kind of had settled on, but I didn't, honestly, like when it came time to prepare for the episode and I started listening to it, like that's not the Haim album for me. The album for me is Women in Music Part 3. And the reason for that is honestly, like I didn't start listening to this band until 2 years ago. And I think a large part of that is exactly like what Chris was saying earlier. Like when streaming services kind of dominated how we listened to music back in the early 2010s, I did not hop on Spotify at all. And I have kind of a black hole in music between about 2012 and 2020 where I wasn't streaming at all. And all the music I was listening to was either through the radio at work or in my car or what Alina was putting on. And Alina had access to Spotify and she was spinning all sorts of new stuff for me, but I wasn't really exploring. And what I was putting on the radio was jazz. So that was kind of like my intro to jazz in that time. So that's really all I was looking to consume. And I was doing it on YouTube. I wasn't even doing it on Spotify. So when I finally got Spotify, started listening to a lot of new music, and I love a lot of female singer-songwriters, female-dominated bands. And when Haim came on, I remember hearing it and going, "Who's this?" And then the song that was playing was Gasoline. And so then I went to the album, and it was like this album bangs from front to back for me.
Yeah.
And when I started listening to Days Gone By, it didn't have that same effect, and so that's why I asked to change it to this album instead of the previous one. Now, I know the first album was like great for them as a band to like really put them out in the spotlight, and they came out with the first album, which was an absolute hit right off the bat. But I think when this album came out, it was kind of bit more of a mature sound, and actually people really saw them as a really well-formed, very talented musicians. All three of them are multi-instrumentalists. They can play any instrument in the band.
Which is so cool.
And they often do, right?
Really
So
cool.
like apparently their live shows, like they're jumping from instrument to instrument. They
That's
can all
really cool.
sing, right? And so for me, it's like I understand that maybe they're not like the absolute best at an instrument, but it's kind of the same conversation as a John Paul Jones, right? Like you can throw anyone,
can they bring to the table?
any one of them into the band because they sing very well, they play guitar very well, they play bass very well, they can play drums, they can play anything.
The bit that you said there that really stuck out to me, Dan, I actually wrote it in my notes, is I agree with you. I think this is a more mature offering from them. And I love that first album. It's perfect pop rock, but it's maybe too perfect. It's maybe too polished.
And it's a little too on the pop side too, right?
Yeah,
This album has a couple songs that are definitely more pop music than rock, but the songs that are rock and roll are like really good rock and roll music.
I think they took more risks with this album.
Yes.
I agree. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's, that's a testament to them being comfortable and mature and confident in what they're doing.
Yeah, for sure. I love one thing I really do love about them is that they can play just about anything in their live. So I've seen them live. I saw them when they came to Toronto. I think it was 2013 or 14 when their first album dropped, and they would switch up on stage just for different songs. It was so cool.
It's amazing.
That's
really
fun.
cool.
Yeah, it's
That's
so
really
amazing.
cool. So, okay, this is Lee supposedly told me she tried to show me these fine ladies 2 years ago, and I just ignored her completely because I was playing the one album. But that happens a lot with when Lee's trying to show me new music because she gets so fixated on
happens with us too.
Yeah, with one songs, and then I just can't get out but I do it to her. Like if she said if she hears Adam Newling's Blackbird one more time in this house, I'm gonna get murdered.
You love that guy.
Yeah, big fan of that guy. But anyway, so it goes both ways. It's not just me. So anyway, so when this came on, she's like, I showed you these guys ages ago, and that was through a friend of ours, Danielle, who showed Lee, and I was like, oh, I kind of like this album. She's like, really, you like this album? She's like, because 2 years ago you said it was trash, right? Like, and I was like, I'm trying to grow as a person, right? Like, I'm trying to grow as a musical person, right? But it took me the whole album. Because I was doing a live text as I was listening, and I was texting you guys, and then you're like, switch the album on me, and I was like, oh, I just feel like I understood that album, so now I have to restart. So restarting with this one, I was very hesitant. But no, I think if I had to pick between the two, I liked Lozier. What was the first one called? I'm sorry.
Days Are Gone.
Days Gone By.
Days Gone By.
Days Are Gone. Days Are Gone.
Days Are Gone. Days Are Gone spoke to me, but because it was a little more poppier. This one, I didn't like Los Angeles off the bat, but that was because I went in with a negative mindset. And then as the album went, I did what I think this one is deeper. I said it was missing something, and that's the only reason I said that was I didn't get far enough into the album. And I was like, no, this album isn't missing something. It's building up. And I really liked it to the point when the bonus track comes on, because I make sure the 3 a.m. The bonus 3 a.m. at the end. I don't know if that's a bonus track.
Yes, I believe it is.
Because there's 3 a.m. and then there's 3 a.m. featuring Thundercat. Yeah. That I was like, I didn't want the album to end. I knew it was because I checked. I was like, oh, okay, now we're into the bonus tracks, and I was like, oh, and I started going back and listening to other songs, and very rarely do I do that right as the album ends. I was like, oh, no, I'm not done yet. I want to go listen again. I want to go hear the difference between these two songs, or I want to hear this. And so, yeah, big fan.
The bonus track with Taylor Swift,
yes,
like doing Gasoline together,
Celine,
banger.
That's cool.
Such a good song.
It's amazing, man. It's such a good song.
They've collaborated
And to add Taylor
on
Swift on lyrics.
They've collaborated on one of Taylor Swift's albums as well.
Yeah, you're saying they're like friends.
They're real tight.
Best friends. Yeah.
Oh no,
that's cool.
Is it it's with Folklore or Evermore?
It's Evermore, I think. No, Folklore. Sorry, Folklore.
The song you're looking for is No Body, No Crime, which appears on Taylor Swift's album, Evermore.
Chris, before we jump into the ratings, please leave the room and go and apologize to your wife.
Yeah,
I will when we're done.
I've done the same thing. I've done the same thing with Alina.
Yeah.
I got super into Phoebe Bridgers in 2020, and she's like, I showed you her. And I was like, no, you didn't. What are you talking about? Like, I just found her on YouTube. What are you talking about?
I discovered her.
It happened.
And she's hammering that. She hammers that on me because I'm a huge Phoebe Bridgers fan now. And
I think it goes both ways. And when you're in a relationship that long, like it goes both ways.
Women listen way better than men. That's just a fact.
Well, I remember, I think I've told you guys this before. There's some TikTok band that does like hard rock and heavy metal covers, and they're huge on TikTok, and I presume touring, etc. And my wife was showing me some of their clips, and I was like, Iron Maiden, Black Sabbath, Dio, Metallica. I was like, this is what I listen to all the time, and you tell me to turn it off. She was like, this one's my favorite. I was like, that's Dio. How many Dio records have you told me to take off the turntable?
Sounds about right. Yeah.
So, yeah, we've all been there.
Yeah. Big fan. Love it. The
All right,
music. It brings us together and separates us completely.
Let's jump into the ratings.
Okay, so this has extremely favorable reviews.
Yeah. Yeah, you can see it.
8.2 out of 10, 89 out of 100, 4.5 out of 5, A minus, 5 out of 5 stars, 4 out of 5 stars, 8.6 out of 10.
Pitchfork is the worst.
4.5.
Just give it a 9. Just give it a 9.
Yeah, well, they actually chose it as their album of the year that year.
Oh, that I'm surprised.
Yeah,
That I'm
8.6
really
is a
surprised.
very high rating.
Yeah.
Oh, God, I hate. Yeah. Pitchfork, either
And
sponsor us
it was
or get out.
nominated.
Dear,
Pitchfork?
you are the celery of
Ratings.
be ice cream or be nothing. 0 stars.
It was nominated for album of the year at the Grammys too. Like
Yeah.
this is
It's a big album.
Yeah, I could see it though.
it really like I think it really set the bar for them, right? Where it's like, okay, you came out with that first album, it was an absolute hit. The second one kind of gets lost, even though it's pretty good.
It is good.
And
It
then
just
as
gets
soon as
lost
this-
between the two.
Yeah, this came out. I was like, okay, this is the band that they truly are.
Yeah.
And this is what we expect moving forward.
They're due for
Dan,
a new
what's
album
your-
too.
Ooh.
Or yeah, I was gonna say, is there anything new out?
Well,
Any
no, not at the
singles?
moment. I don't think anyway.
Yeah.
No.
No.
You know what I like about them too is they collaborate really well. Like I don't know if you guys have heard their song that they do with Calvin Harris. It's a fucking banger.
Is
haven't heard
it?
Check it.
No.
It's really cool because I think Calvin Harris does a really good job collaborating with other artists too. Because he tends
He does.
he
does,
tends to suit whoever he's working with. That like he mixes his style and their styles together really, really well and creates something really special. And that their song that they did together in particular, absolute banger. Like go like after this episode, go listen
Yeah,
to
go
it. I'm
listen
telling
to
you,
that.
you'll really enjoy it.
Can we, in post, can we clip Matt saying it's a fucking banger and just use that as an insert every now and then? Because I love that.
Clip, and then we could say something that's like clip it, and then it'll just be Matt going, "It's a fucking banger," and me
make it
going,
happen.
"I hate country,
But also,
Clip
I
that.
love country.
but I love country. I love my wife."
Matt, what's your sorry, Dan, what's your pressing of this?
It's just nothing special, off the shelf.
Because what I found really interesting digging into this one is they all have crazy resale value. Like there's like
do they?
10 different
Yeah.
variants of this. They all like are on Discogs marketplace for a lot more than what you'd pay for a new record. And this is only 3 years old.
Yes.
Yeah.
The first, I think it was the first version that they released actually was released through Urban Outfitters and limited to 4,000 copies. The highest sold on Discogs for that version is $274.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me.
Which is just like, for something that's newly released, seems crazy.
Yeah.
That does.
Yeah, but the band has big fan appeal, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
They do
obviously
some
got a
pretty
big
cool
following.
pressings too.
Yeah, this was a translucent yellow, I think, which, I mean, are coloured vinyl and translucent vinyl even a novelty anymore? They feel like they're the stand, like black. It feels like black is the novelty now.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah. Everything I get lately has been
Coloured or pictured, yeah. Or splatter, or, it's hard to get just black.
I don't know if you guys have checked into their early releases off of their first album, but for My Song 5, they released, I think it was a 10-inch single, and it's of the youngest sister. I can't, her name is escaping me at the moment. I apologize.
Her name is Alana.
But it's a cutout of her in like a bomber jacket, and it's basically her shape as the record. It's really cool.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
That's cool. Yeah.
Dan, I don't know, you may have said it without saying it
Song?
explicitly. Yeah, what's your
it's
pick?
Gasoline.
It's Gasoline.
Gasoline
Yeah.
featuring Taylor Swift.
Oh, okay.
It's such a tune. Do you know what? It took me back to the 90s. immediately.
Yep.
It just feels like a really good 90s tune.
Well,
That's
and
interesting.
I,
I,
heard some
don't know if I get that same vibe.
I got
do you
some
know what?
Sheryl Crow.
You said,
vibes
yeah,
from this
Chris,
album.
I know you said Sheryl Crow for a different song, but I got
Yeah.
Sheryl Crow from Gasoline.
I could see it. I got Sheryl Crow bleeding in through a couple of them.
And man, the Fleetwood Mac vibes are strong on this album.
Always have been
Oh,
with
yeah.
them.
Yeah, we're with this band for
Yeah.
sure.
Oh, I can't remember the song.
Yeah,
Tom,
especially
do you
Lean
remember
Into
what
You.
one? Was it Lean Into
Lean Into You. It felt like it feels like a Fleetwood Mac song when
Yeah.
it starts. Or sorry, leaning on you.
Sorry,
Leaning?
my mistake.
Leaning on you.
I can't remember, but as soon as it came on, me and Lee started talking. It was like, Lee,
I've Been Down is the one you said, and that's
That's a
very
great
strong
song.
Sheryl Crow vibes.
I
Yeah.
was like, Lee, who does this sounds like? And I went, and she's like, Sheryl Crow. I was like,
Yep.
yes,
Big time.
yeah.
I really
It was cool.
enjoyed.
I like it though, but it didn't seem a ripoff. It seemed like Sheryl Crow could jump on and like support the lyrics, and it would have been like they need to team up to do that song.
Yeah,
It would be really
it feels
cool.
they did a fresh.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's funny. It's called Women in Music, and there's a
Yeah.
lot of inspiration from a lot of
Mm-hmm.
female artists on this band. So I'm sure there's maybe something about that. It's just obviously a guess and an assumption.
Homage.
Oh, that would be really cool.
Yeah. The man from the magazine's got really interesting lyrics if you actually read those while you're listening to the song. Like some of the anecdotes from the way that they've been spoken to by, industry people, or, the first line is around someone asking if the bassist makes the same facial expressions that she makes when she's playing in bed. Like,
yeah.
just disgusting from someone who's supposed to be a professional. And then a line about the guitarist going to a music store and being handed a beginner's guitar when she was trying to shop for guitars. Like, just
That's just
outrageous
awful.
stuff that these people have to go through.
Women have to go through.
Yeah.
Or
exactly.
people who identify as women have to go through. Yeah, it's ridiculous. Like,
Or
especially in the
we-
music. Yeah.
should we jump into our final? It feels like we've been ripping through this, but should we jump into our final
We're good.
album?
Yeah, let's go.
Let's go.
All right, so
Excited for this one.
the 2010s, we had. This feels like a throwback, really, talking about Bowie in the 2010s. But do you know what?
Love it.
I had it in my mind that we needed Bowie in the Supergroup. I actually couldn't think of another single album that I wanted to include in this episode, aside from a Tool album, which I just didn't think fit for this series. So
Yeah.
why not? Let's bring David Bowie back in and try and get him into the Supergroup, like
Yeah.
50 years after his career started.
So Bev.
Yeah, but a guy that could have been inserted in a few different
In
decades.
almost any
100%.
of the decades.
Yeah.
And so Bev made a in the 70s, she's like, what about Bowie? And I was like, I'm not saying anything. I'm not saying anything.
Just you wait.
Just you wait. So mom here, it's for you.
Yeah.
I don't know. My mom's a huge Bowie fan. So Bev, if you haven't listened to this album, now's the chance
So
to dive back in.
It's
Yeah.
about the criteria. It's,
Yes.
I don't know if we're gonna do a leftovers episode.
We should.
Yeah.
That was the kind, like the leftovers.
But Bowie could have been in the leftovers.
He
Bowie
would
could
have
have.
he would have been in that discussion for sure.
But let's talk about is he best in class? Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
absolutely.
Is this an iconic album? I will lay out a bunch of reasons why this is a yes. It's in 1,001 albums to start with. Is he best in class? Do you have it in collection? Have you featured it before? We've only featured one other Bowie album as far as I could remember, which was Heroes.
Yep.
Yes.
But I just want to paint a picture of this time in Bowie's life, late in Bowie's life, sadly. This is his 26th studio album,
Insane.
released in 2016. It was recorded in secret while he was suffering from and undergoing treatment for liver cancer.
That's insane.
He had been battling this for 6 months at the time that recording started. He would often show up to recording sessions fresh from chemo.
Yeah.
He didn't find out that the cancer was terminal until 3 months before it was released. It was released 2 days before his death.
That's
Which is
insane.
Holy
insane.
shit, man.
This is an artist who has a legacy of 26 studio albums, 25 before this, that has touched every decade
Yeah.
that he has been performing and producing music. He has featured in every single decade prominently, an iconic artist for multiple generations.
Plus, he has his hands on a ton of iconic albums.
100%.
And then you think about that context and think about an artist making what they hope is not, but think might be their last artistic statement.
Yeah.
Yep.
Magnum opus.
It's you can't actually comprehend what was going through his head. And obviously the themes in the album are quite dark and tackle
Very dark.
mortality, like head on as he was in his cancer battle. But what I found really interesting to kind of balance that is he didn't want it to be his final work. Once it was released, he had already spoken to his producer that he had demos for its follow-up.
Oh,
so
wow.
he was still tapping the muse, right? But just receiving this in the context that he died 2 days after it was released is just
mind-blowing.
Like mind-blowing, earth-shattering, emotionally, like just really moving. And then on top of that, he didn't just release like a best of or a standard rock and roll album. Like he pushes the boundaries enormously. It took me, I would say, until my fourth listen of this album to say, I don't just appreciate this, I actually like it.
Yeah.
Because it's challenging.
It's challenging and it's very dark, but it's also a beautiful album.
It's
absolutely
so beautiful.
Yeah.
I listened to it when I think just shortly after it came out, and I think I was a little bit too passive when I listened to it because I feel like I can listen to any Bowie and I'm gonna like it, and I didn't hate it when it first came out, but when I had to listen to it again with intention for this episode, man, honestly, this is a masterpiece.
Is this his greatest work?
I don't. In terms of like his greatest work, I don't think so, because he has set so many bars.
He really has.
That it's like at this point you can't really talk about any one particular album. Like he has a body of work that is absolute god tier.
26 albums,
and he finished it with a masterpiece. And
yes, that's a great way to put it.
He brought on like epic session musicians to accompany him on this album, and it's so distinctly Bowie, but it's also so unique for anything. Like it is, dude. Like this is an amazing album. This is
art rock, new jazz
tier pick.
Yeah.
Like it's interesting too because came out in 2016. Again, still fits the time perfectly. Like he's timeless, right?
He's timeless. Yeah. He's a kind of artist that like he never follows. He's always setting the tone. He's always setting the bar. Everyone follows him, man.
Yeah.
And it's about like everything he did, fashion, the way he approached music, just his taste in things. Like he had his hand in so many different bands being successful because
even as
in
a
the same way
producer.
that like a Rick Rubin talks about, like it's people hire him because he has taste.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not because he has perfect pitch or he's a great musician. He just knows what's cool. He knows what works. And that's David Bowie's in that same category.
Yeah.
Yeah. And again, I'm like with you, Lozier. When it first came out, I don't think I appreciated it. I wasn't in the mindset to listen to it. And when it came onto this list, I had no idea kind of what to expect because it'd been so long since I heard Black Star. And the only song I would have known would have been the single off of it. And I think it was by the second song, halfway through, I was like, no, I like this. This is going to be in heavy rotation, especially over the winter months. I can see this.
Oh, but be careful listening to this in the winter.
Well, you remember,
not a good time to listen to it.
No, but remember how me and Lozier lean into the
lean into it.
Me and
That's how you beat
Lozier.
the winter blues.
Yeah, me and him lean into it, Ray. And it's definitely going to be there. And because again, I was on the fence on this one. I was like, we should have saved Bowie has moments not moments in time. Every moment in time, there's a Bowie.
But he's timeless. So
Yes.
you
Yeah.
know,
Timeless.
Yeah, and
This could have been released this year. It could have been released 20 years ago.
Yep.
It's crazy how it could have, it could fit anywhere.
what?
Like-
yeah,
It's timeless. And again, I don't know. There's something special there.
but just to be happy with this coming out, knowing by the time it came out, knowing like he's been told that it's terminal
Yep.
3 months before it came out, so knowing that yes, this is your final piece of work, and having the confidence to release it, like your legacy is set. He didn't need another album.
No,
but-
definitely not.
Yeah, but he's an artist. He's he's beyond. He's transcended. It's like Prince. He's transcended that artistry. He's all
an
encompassing,
icon.
right?
He's
He's
an
an icon. Yeah.
Let's talk about the packaging because it's part of.
Yeah. Let's see.
So this is stunning. This art. So it's die cut matte black.
Beautiful.
It has the die cut star, which looks onto a pure black vinyl and label.
Nice.
That's cool. Big fan of the black labels.
Yeah.
The typography is
yep.
Bowie spelled out in stars.
Wow.
Which is so cool.
Oh, wow.
Which is really cool.
Bowie. It's matte black on the back. The vinyl is in this clear plastic hard sleeve.
Oh, that's cool. I didn't know that.
The
Again, he's an artist.
This is the only image of him on. It's the first ever Bowie album that didn't have an image of him on the cover. I don't know what you make from that, given that it's his last.
Maybe.
It's about the music. It's not about the icon.
Okay.
Like there's got to be some sort of symbolism.
Well,
in
I think given that the star was a symbol in his entire career, you know, especially Ziggy Stardust.
Is he the black
he's
star?
he's going back to the stars. You know, like
Yeah.
There's a 12-page booklet, which is a lyric booklet, which has
Nice.
this. They call the blind prophet, is what people have called this imagery of him. And then you won't be able to see this, but if you hold this up to the light, if there's light behind it, stars shine through the die
that's
cutout.
cool.
That's cool.
Wow, that's a
It's
hell of a.
that's what vinyl's about.
That's vinyl.
None of this crappy cardboard from old cereal boxes that I've been getting lately. Let's go.
It itself is a piece of art, just a really
Yes.
cool thing to have in your collection. So
Yeah.
I bought this for this episode, but I'm having listened to it now for a long time. I'm really glad to have it in my collection, just given who Bowie is as an artist.
I added it to my list this week.
Same.
I was like, God. And I think we saw it at Play the Record, if I'm not mistaken.
We did.
And Pandemonium had it as well.
Yeah. Anyone remember the price?
I think it was $45.
That's not bad as long as it looks like
That's
the one
I'm going to buy that if that's not a,
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure it was $45.
Here's a great bit of trivia about the vinyl. Bowie was the best-selling vinyl artist of 2016 in the UK.
Wow.
That's not surprising.
That's cool.
That's pretty cool.
And he had 5 albums in the top 30 that year, including Black Star as the #1 vinyl album of the year.
he died, right? He died in 2016, so people go back through his discography.
But Black Star was #1.
Yeah.
So people
good.
still bought Black Star more than anything else.
Awesome.
It sold twice as many copies as the previous year's winner, Adele's 25.
Nice.
Wow.
Wow.
In vinyl sales.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
In vinyl sales.
Let's talk about the ratings.
Okay, this has exceptional reviews.
Yeah. But it's Bowie. Yeah.
8.4 out of 10, 87 out of 100, 5 out of 5, A-, 5 out of 5, A-, 4 out of 5, 4 out of 5, 4 out of 5, 8.5 out of 10 by Pitchfork, very high rating. 4 out of 5, 7
Chris's
out of 10.
face.
Spin magazine. Jesus.
Yeah. So it hit.
Yeah. I would say
yeah.
this might be up for some of his best work.
Yeah.
It would
I
be
think so.
intentional.
I would too.
Comfortably.
I agree.
Yeah.
I think
Maybe not his best.
as time goes on, people will consider this as just as iconic as, say, Ziggy
I would have
Stardust
loved to
or
hear what he already
Heroes.
had in the
I
bank.
think you have to give it
for a
Ziggy Stardust
continuation.
as his best work.
I wonder if we'll ever see them. He had
Heroes.
5 demos. He had 5 demos for the follow-up.
Oh, man, I would love to hear them.
I'm sure they're going to release them.
I'm sure they will. Yeah.
Oh, wait. What's this toy?
What do you mean?
It was released in 2021. So maybe that's something we can dive into
yeah.
and have and have a little look at.
So
Yeah, because there's a bunch that has been released in the last 2 years from the Bowie estate, if you will. So maybe that's something we need to dive into a little bit.
before we jump into our final supergroup, I'd be interested to hear what you guys thought. For me, Lazarus is the standout. I mean, they're all standouts, but Lazarus spoke to me the most just purely for the literal look at me, I'm in heaven. Like just the eerie sort of listening to that, knowing.
I'm gonna echo that sentiment.
I don't know.
Yeah,
Just for
that's a dark song.
Yeah.
It is for the title and just for it being so Bowie. I love "'Tis a Pity She's a Whore."
Oh, I love
I don't
that.
know.
That would be my second
Great
choice.
song. Yeah.
Yeah,
I thought
I
that was
just
a
as soon as
good
that came on, I was
I'm
like,
with Chris.
"Oh, this is so Bowie. It's perfect."
I'm with
Yeah.
Chris. When
Yeah.
that song came on, like Black Star feels like 3 songs total.
Yes.
Yes, it is. It definitely. I had to keep
it was
checking.
originally
Which I kind of
2 songs. It was originally
yeah.
2 songs.
I wish it had like a part 1 and 2 that you could
2.
like start at if you wanted to.
Yeah,
But
that
then
makes
when
sense.
Tis
yeah.
a Pity, when "'Tis a Pity She's a Whore" comes on, I was like, oh, this is dying.
I liked it. Yeah,
And also kind of prophetic in Girl Loves Me, I think it's called. There's a lyric, where the fuck did Monday go?
Yes.
Bowie died on a Sunday.
Whoa.
Like,
yeah.
there's
so
just all
weird,
this
man.
little, obviously, other people are applying that
Yeah.
symbolism, but there's just so many layers to this album.
Yeah.
Really, really, yeah. I'm so glad we could get Bowie into the main thing, not as a leftover.
Yeah.
Yes.
He does not deserve to be a leftover. We would have
No.
had to hang our heads in shame.
Well, and also I think we knew this was like, okay, for the listeners out there, we have a map. We had a like it's a Google Doc, but it's a map of what we wanted this to sort of look like. And if this album didn't speak to us in this way, he would have probably been slotted in somewhere else. And I think that's important
Yeah.
to kind of
He
to
would have
keep
had
in
to.
mind, right? Yeah. Right. So
Yeah, we did a little bit of research before we put this thing together.
lots of arguing, I would like to say. Yeah.
Okay. Constructive dialogue.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, arguing in the
Constructive
best
dialogue.
way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Arguing in the best way. I fucking
right.
hate all of you because you're all wrong. But
Fuck you! You're putting John Mayer in this band.
I just still have so much joy in the moment that I read Mayer saying this is his least favorite album of his.
that makes me so happy and mad at the same time because again, it's my favorite of his. So it's just
You got to
again, I
jump on
think we're-
Continuum, Chris.
What does that say?
I think we're coming to the conclusion I have horrible taste in music. So no one should take anything I say seriously.
No, I actually don't think that at all, Chris.
Yeah, I wouldn't
think-
say that.
I think
I know.
your taste in music is unapologetically subjective.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's actually
yeah.
pretty accurate.
I also
Like you're
can-
just like there's no I appreciate this for the objective value that this brings. It's like
Yeah.
either I like it in the context that I'm listening to it
Or I don't.
Yeah, that's very me. Yeah,
Yeah.
but that's my whole
I
life.
appreciate yeah. I
Yeah,
appreciate
that's my whole life. It's I hate everything or I love everything. There's nothing in between, which is
100%.
very
That's
a
why we
crazy
love
way
you,
to live
Chris.
your life. And I've been trying to be better. Yeah.
All right, let's build our last decade supergroup. All
Yeah.
right, this one's hard because a lot of people do the same things, but I will throw out suggestions of who should be placed in each category, like all of the candidates.
Yep.
And then we can talk about them. So for vocals, it would be Dan from Black Keys. I think it would be all of Haim, but maybe the most prominent would be Danielle.
Yep.
And then John Mayer, but I think he'd probably be more considered for guitar.
Let's
And
cut
then-
to the
100%.
chase.
Bowie.
David Bowie is the vocalist.
Yeah, I was
Is
going
he
to
the
say.
vocalist or is he the wild card?
No, I think
wild
he
card
needs to
should
be the
the
front
vocalist.
vocalist.
Instrumentalist. Okay, all right,
Yeah.
Bowie. Done. I'm going to put it in the table.
Bowie. Yeah.
Lead guitar.
Which I'm trying to load the table because I like to see
Lead
it.
The
guitar, I
lead
would say, is
guitar, are
Mayer.
there any arguments against it being Mayer?
I
Gotta
don't
be
think
John
so.
Mayer.
I think it has to be him.
Yeah.
Gotta be John Mayer.
Okay. Rhythm guitar, it's going to be Dan
Yeah.
or Dan, I think.
I
would say Dan
Personally,
or Danielle.
Yes, that's
yeah,
what I
so
mean.
it's
yeah.
Dan or Danielle.
Danielle,
I
yeah.
say it's got to be Dan Auerbach
Yeah.
because I think Danielle Haim should be put into the wild card spot.
I totally agree with that.
Because she offers vocals,
she can
guitar,
play
and
anything.
synth.
She can play anything.
Yeah, Chris?
I'm frozen, but yes.
Okay. Dan.
There we go. Yeah, I agree.
Auerbach. Bach. Bass. This is going to, it's not going to be, it's going to be someone from Haim because there's no other option.
That's got to be Esti.
Yeah. I would put Este Haim. Honestly, I think her bass guitar is actually really great.
Yeah, she's really good.
Yeah, they're all highly professional musicians who've been playing since they were kids. Like
I talked about this earlier in the episode. The point I want to make about this, I think it's our weakest supergroup, regardless with what we end up with. And outside of Bowie, I'm not going to advocate for any of these people to be in the final group, and maybe
100%.
maybe not even Bowie.
I'm
I'm just being completely transparent with our listeners.
Which is also why we're not making giant arguments for this. I would just have been, if everyone here was just like, hey, you just guys want to put Bowie on his own and the supergroup is just
It's
Bowie.
just Bowie.
I would have been like, yeah, I'm down.
It's a cop-out.
I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that. It's a cop-out. But yes, I agree. Like, yeah, Bowie's the only one who put out it, like, is in the realm of everyone else, which is why I pushed so hard for the 2010s. But the second we started jumping into the 2010s, I was like, you can't compare. Now, I don't know if that's because we're missing, there's too much music and the whole thing's saturated. And we're missing some great artists and some great.
We definitely have holes, there's no doubt.
The thing is that I don't
know,
like. I don't necessarily agree with you guys that this is actually that weak of a band because everyone in this band.
I just said it was our weakest.
No, but I wouldn't say that any other of the guitarists or bass drummers or drummers or bassists are that much better than who we're putting up here. But I think a large part of the issue that we're going to face when we do the final supergroup is how much context and time has spanned between the 60s and now. Like it's so easy for us to say all these hitters in the 60s are the best because over the last 60 years, we've consistently agreed that they are the best.
Oh, it's objective, right?
Whereas with these artists, it's like they've only been around for 10 years. Let's give them 60 years of context and those albums 60 years of them being top tier albums for people to be like, no, like the Haim sisters are some of the best musicians that came out of the 2010s.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So it's
John Mayer's one of the best guitarists. Like Dan Auerbach and Patrick Carney had one of the best bands for a 5-year span. Like,
Yep.
So you're saying we got to come back and do this in 60 years?
Or they lost to time. Yeah, interesting. Okay.
No, I think it's an excellent point. I just wanted to get that out there. We've had this discussion in the chat. Just wanted to get it out there on the pod as well. Let's talk about the drummer. I've penciled someone in, but I want to hear what people have to think.
Patrick Carney.
Patrick, right?
Yeah.
I actually think he's
he's a great drummer.
You know, we talked
really
about Meg White being a deceptively good drummer. I think this is in the same sort of wheelhouse.
I would agree.
I don't know if it's deceptive. He just is unique. Like the drums are so unique on that album.
He plays the beats. He plays the beats you don't expect to hear.
Yes.
And and this is the same point I made with Ringo. Like he creates drum tone. He creates drum style. He's not just playing a standard 4/4 rock and roll.
Ringo.
Yeah, we get it. You like Ringo. Okay.
No, but I'm just saying, like all the other drummers of that time were playing pretty standard stuff. Ringo, he was setting a bar.
Dan, Ringo, Lozier, who would you like as the wild card?
Me, I'm putting up Danielle Haim as a wild
card.
Yeah, I'm going there as well.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because her and Bowie together, that's going to be
a pretty good
a magical
combination.
Okay.
Absolutely.
This is the picture we have, and if you'll allow me, I already have an idea for the circumstances with which these artists came together. So we've got David Bowie, John Mayer, Dan Auerbach, Este Haim. Is it Haim or Haim, Dan?
Haim.
I think it's Haim, yeah.
Haim? Oh, I was saying Haim.
Patrick Carney and Danielle Haim. Okay.
Sorry, it is Haim. Sorry.
Haim. Okay. It's 2016. David Bowie has passed away at the start of the year. He's released his final masterpiece, Black Star. Haim and John Mayer are both performing at Bonnaroo. they have a little bit of beef because of the Swift Mayer thing, but you know that's.
And he's kind of a dick.
That's in the past. They're both
He's a huge
performing
dick.
at Bonnaroo. They're both huge Bowie fans. The Black Keys are at the festival, but they're not performing. And for the listeners, Haim and Mayer both actually played at Bonnaroo 2016. Mayer was with Dead & Co. There's a new technology out that allows for a hologram.
Yes, I knew you were going there. I knew it.
That's so
As soon
exciting.
as you said Bonnaroo, I had a
It
feeling.
allows for a hologram to present an artist from any era in any way they may have appeared in the past. So Haim, John Mayer, and the members of the Black Keys who are just there mingling and, doing their thing as musicians do, they decide they're going to perform an impromptu medley in tribute to Bowie.
Love it.
But can I add a little bit more context on
Of
the
course.
stage? The Haim sisters, the Haim sisters, they were the ones who were planning all of this with the David Bowie holograph. But it was John Mayer and his massive ego who decided, I'm also going to join them on stage. To Haim's reluctance.
Because of the Swift Mayer beef.
Because of the beef.
Yeah.
And one of the Haim sisters made eye contact with Dan Auerbach and Patrick Carney on behind the stage, and they were like, "Come on here to Offset so that
Break
we can
the
get,
ice." Yeah.
so we can not let John Mayer fill the whole stage with the size
with
of
his
his massive ego."
Dan, that's a great point that they came up with it, because they were the only ones in 5 minutes of research that I could find had an actual reaction publicly to Bowie's death. They tweeted or put on X, as it's now known, "Can't believe it. We will forever be inspired by /love you, Bowie," with a blue love heart emoji and an image of Bowie from his Stardust era.
Nice.
So they are the masterminds. The medley is a hit song from each one of his personas or eras. And the hologram changes to match each of those eras. So there's Major Tom singing Space Odyssey. There's Ziggy Stardust singing Starman. There's Aladdin Sane singing Genie. There's Halloween Jack singing Rebel Rebel. The Thin White Duke is singing Fame. And then they finish it off with the Berlin Trilogy era Bowie singing Heroes. And everyone weeps.
Balls. I got goosebumps.
I got goosebumps.
I got goosebumps.
And then the icing on the cake, because they were just a tribute put together just for this one medley, they don't actually have a name, but a member of the press pack who is at the gig refers to the tribute in the wake of Bowie's shock death as like light in a black hole.
Nope.
And that's it.
A black star.
Like light in a black star. There you go. That's our 2010 Supergroup.
A black hole is technically a black star.
Black star, isn't it? Yeah, I think that's a nickname. Yeah, there you go.
I love that. That was nice.
Yeah. Hey, well thought out, Tom.
Thank you.
How many mushrooms did you take to come up with that one?
I actually thought of it while I was listening to Black Star on a walk, and I was just like, man, he has so many different personas. How do you capture his whole career?
To me, I honestly thought the song that they should play is Heroes.
It's
so
like
good.
pulls on the heart. Like you hear it, you just want to sing it. You feel a little tear coming down your cheek. It's a beautiful song.
It is.
Well, I for one want to say that we just finished this amazing series, and I think we just came up with some phenomenal bands. And I'm really excited for the last episode to kind of put it all together, because
We've created 6 supergroups now.
they're awesome. They're all awesome.
So basically 30 musicians, maybe 29 musicians. A lot of musicians, and we're going to have to whittle that down to 5. What have we done to
No,
ourselves?
I think 6, because we can add one wild card.
We're gonna have to have a wild card.
Okay.
We're gonna have to.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
6.
someone's gonna OD on the tour, and you're gonna need a backup.
That's dark. That's it. That is our final decade supergroup. The 2010s, David Bowie, John Mayer, Dan Auerbach, Este Haim, Patrick Carney, and Danielle Haim. They are light in a black hole. We are the Groovy Guys. If you like this, jump back through the catalogue, listen to the other previous 5 decades of supergroups. The next episode we bring you will be our ultimate rock supergroup. Make sure you like and subscribe. Send us hate mail as soon as possible. Till next time, keep digging and spinning.
It's a fucking banger.
The Groovy Guys are Tom Kennedy, Dan Lozier, Chris Palumbo, and Matt Carvalho. With your host, Tom Kennedy. Music by Dan Lozier, post-production by Matt, and album art by Chris.